Okay, this is our second session of Girls in STEM with Claire Mutter from the UK and the girls at WCCA Wilkinson County Christian Academy in the STEM program. So the girls have sent Claire a document which includes 2 questions each. So why don't you take them in whatever order you want.
Okay, so let me think.
And if you want to know who the girls are, just ask, which one's who.
Right, so I'll tell you what, if I ask who has asked me these questions, so who is Brooke? Mm-hmm. Right, Brooke, shall I go with your questions first? So you asked me, are there mostly men or women working in your company? And if men, then would you say your experience has been good or bad getting to the point you're at now? So Brooke, I've landed in a company that's actually very, very, very diverse. Okay, so my overall boss and the boss on my account are both women, which is quite unusual. And one of the women is non-white, actually. She's not white either. So it's very diverse. I would say we've got people from all sorts of backgrounds. Some have got university degrees, some haven't. All sorts of different racial backgrounds as well, and men and women. So it's quite mixed. But unfortunately, that's not normal. So in the UK, in technology and project management, there's only about 17% of the workforce that would be women. And pure project management is about 14%. It's not good. So there's a huge push in Great Britain to get more women into technology. No question about it. My first experience in technology was there was 200 people in the workforce in the department I found myself in. Guess how many were women out of 200? So this would have been about, quite a long time ago, about probably 25 years ago. Just have a wild guess how many were women.
22. 20. 12.
2 was closest. There was 4 of us. 4. That was it. I think it's changing, and I think it's for the good. We used to have some fun with it. So if I tell you a funny story, we had a big meeting with a big technology company, 2 of us coming together, and when the men came in from this other firm, our team went in and one of the women went in, and they gave her their orders for tea and coffee. So out she went, and she came back in a bit later, and it was a huge deal. This was big negotiation they were going through, and the other supplier said, well, when's your boss arriving so we can get the negotiation started? So this woman turned round, took her jacket off the back of the chair, put it on, went to the top of the meeting table, sat down, and she said, I'm here. Gentlemen, would you like to sit down? So we were laughing because that meant that actually they'd jumped to a very bad conclusion that she was there to make the tea, but she was actually the most senior person in the room. So we actually ended up signing a very good contract because the men from the other firm were very embarrassed by what they'd done. So sometimes you can use it in a nice way. It's about enjoying who you are and not being ashamed of it. But it is a lot better now. It's an awful lot better. But there's still an awful lot of room for improvement. I think one of the biggest things about getting women into technology is sponsorship, women and men sponsoring other women. It's quite important. So what is the best piece of advice you can give from your experience? I think the most important thing is when there's an opportunity in front of you, take it. Just grab it. Because you don't know where it will lead to. And better to take an opportunity and decide you don't like it than never actually to give it a go in the first place. So I would say most of my career, there's been an opportunity in front of me and I've just gone for it. And it's been amazing what it's led to. Okay, so that's how I actually got into technology. There was a big project going on in the firm I was in at the time. And they said, we're looking for volunteers. So I thought, I'll give it a go. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And it was really the beginning of my career, just taking off. So just give it a go. Is that okay, Brooke? Happy with those?
Yes, thank you.
Okie dokie. Right, now, who is Bryson?
Me.
Brighton, that is such a cool name.
Thank you.
You know there's a place called Brighton in England, don't you?
That's what my mom named me after because she went there and she loved it.
Aha, it's one of the coolest parts of the whole of England. So you've got a great name there. So do you think that STEM would be a great aspect to have when going into medical school? So Brighton, I'm going to say, I think it could be quite useful because of the global pandemic we've just been experiencing. So what is interesting, it often takes a major disaster for us to make a huge advancement in medical science or in technology. So have you all heard of penicillin? Yeah. Well, penicillin existed for a long time, but it actually took the Second World War before it was really used quite widely in the general population. Okay, and we've never looked back since. And I was at a conference that the Scottish government held about 2 weeks ago, and they said it's taken a global pandemic to get the vast majority of the population using technology. And so, although it's been an absolutely horrendous situation we're all in, it's really moved everything forward quite significantly. Now, why does that mean I think it could be interesting going into medical school? If you look at what's happening in surgery, they're increasingly using robots in surgery, okay, and all sorts of technology to assist. Telecare is going to become huge. So there's all sorts of artificial intelligence, really, and they call it smart technology. So Ray will be able to give you a bit more of that. But this is the sort of technology where it's called wearables. You can wear it, or it's monitors. And it means that doctors can actually monitor what's happening if you've got a condition from miles away. So they've used it a long time in the military. So some of the top pilots in some of the air forces in the world, in their suits that they wear, they've got wearable technology, and it can monitor the heart rate and all sorts of different things. It can even monitor your glucose levels, okay? So that you're able to tell from completely the opposite part of the world whether those pilots are good to fly or not. And all that type of technology is going to come into medicine. We're very lucky in Britain, we've got free healthcare. However, the sheer volume of population we've got, it is becoming quite a challenge. So being now able to get patients to come on a Zoom call like this, or even wear wearable technology, or some of the things that are coming in, if you've got diabetes, you can wear a special patch. So instead of having to prick your finger and test all the time, this patch will say, oh, careful, glucose levels looking a bit odd, your insulin's going a bit, you need to check it out. Or your GP can ring you. So medical science is going to increasingly use technology. I think it's going to be quite an exciting part of it as well. So I think, if anything, that's probably one of the areas where we're going to see all this sort of technology come in more than anywhere else. Do you think that STEM will be a required class in the future? It wouldn't surprise me if some form of basic, well, I think computer literacy, definitely. So that, or I think all organisations, many jobs will need you to be able to use some sort of software in your job. It wouldn't surprise me if there is push for it. And one of the things I think we are going to see is a push by a lot of governments to get a lot more women in STEM. And I think there'll be a lot of universities and schools that will be encouraged to do that. So yeah, so if that's where you want to go, medical school, I think technology would be a very interesting one to have a look at. Yeah, does that sort of answer you expected there, Bryson?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, who should we go with next? Right, who's Coco? Great name. You have far more interesting names than we have, I tell you. So now you might have to explain your first question to me a little bit, Coco. So your first question was, what was the worst part of the whole thing and your favourite part?
Like what part of your whole career did you struggle with and you didn't like the most?
Right, what did I struggle with the most? So the worst part of my career, and it was a lesson in finding out what I really didn't want to do, was I started life in insurance and I was a claims negotiator, and I was a negotiator for people who'd had accidents at work or other sort of maybe something had happened to me in the street, like something had fallen on the head or something. And I hated it, absolutely hated it. And the reason why I hated it was you were spending every day arguing with people about whether or not they had a claim, whether or not you were going to pay the claim. And I found it stressful. It just didn't work for me. So another funny story, who's heard of Pepsi Cola? Yeah, so that was one of our clients. And there was a guy who was making a claim, and he was totally stressed out. You could tell everything was going wrong in his life. He was getting divorced, his job wasn't going well, he had some medical problems. Now, he'd put a can of Pepsi Cola in his backpack with a computer, but the computer he had was metal and it had sharp edges. What do you think happened to the Pepsi Cola can?
Busted.
Yeah, punctured it, totally wrecked his laptop, and his company decided that was it. Can't cope with anything else going wrong. We're going to have to let you go. So he lost his job. So he decided to sue Pepsi Cola for loss of his job, you see. So I was the lucky person who got this claim. And I said, there is no claim. Because as you know, if you stick a can of Pepsi next to a laptop in your backpack and it's got sharp corners, it's very likely you're going to have an accident. So I said, well, sorry. So he was not happy about this. And every day he'd ring me, shout at me and scream at me down the phone. Great. And one day he said, have you got children? I said, I'm not answering any personal questions. And he said, well, you try and look after children when you haven't got a job. So the next morning, reception rang me and said, morning, Claire. And I went, morning. And they said, you've got a delivery. And I thought, oh, what sort of delivery? And they said, there's 3 children down here asking for you. And he'd left his children in the reception area for me to look after. So I was about 24 at the time. So we all went into a slight panic and said, no, what do we do? And I said, well, go and get them some sweets or something and keep them entertained. And then we had to ring various people to come and sort it out. But that was one of my, how do I put it, one of my more interesting days at the office. So you do get things like that. So that was the worst part. I think the best part of my career, I'll tell you what I think the best part of my career is. I love line managing people. And it's when I've had young people come into the firm and you're able to train them up, and then you see them really accelerate, and they just go through promotion. And some of them, when they don't, I remember there was one girl I worked with for a long time called Christina, and I used to call her Bambi because she was always bouncing around and really giggly. And she came in from university into one of the firms I worked for, and she was like an excited puppy, Christina was. You know, if you put something in front of her, she'd just devour it and go for it. And she had a fantastic attitude. And basically, I saw Christina in probably about 6 or 7 years go from a graduate all the way through to a middle manager. And she did fantastically well. But it was just, she never changed who she was. She still giggled in meetings, which some people thought was a bit odd, but people loved her. And she did really well. So that would be the highlight. And if I could redo anything, believe it or not, I'd change one of the exams I did at school. So I decided to take English literature instead of geography. And I just did not enjoy it at all. And I got a terrible mark. And it was probably my worst qualification. So that's not, if that's all I've got to change in my career, that's not a bad thing. But that taught me, if you're going to do something as qualification, it's not a bad thing to do something you enjoy, because it makes it a lot easier. So there you go, Coco. Good questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so where do we go next? How are we doing for time, Ray? Are we all right?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okie dokie. So, Ava. Hello. Right, what have we got? Now, did I take STEM classes when I was younger? I went to an all-girls school, and I flunked science. Apart from biology and the earthworm, I couldn't get my head around science, so we didn't do very well with that. Engineering wasn't an option because we were an all-girls school. We didn't do engineering in those days, which I think was a bit, a bit short-sighted. But we did do computers. But it was only just coming into really the as an offering in school, because the computers we were learning on, and again, if you've seen any of the old-fashioned type computers, we had to put tapes in them, and they were huge things. And if I had to do my computer homework, I used to have to ring my dad and have to drive to school so I could put the computer, so the big thing, and the cassette deck and the printer and the monitor in the back of his car. And now my smartphone would be about probably 500 times more powerful than that school computer. So it was very early days, and but we all did it, and I think it was a good introduction to it, really. But I think things have moved on a lot. So we're talking about, again, probably about 40 years ago. And you wouldn't believe how much technology has moved on now. So, yes, I think nowadays, if I change your question slightly, I think you absolutely need to do some sort of computer training to get any job. Most jobs, I think, is coming in. Even jobs you'd think wouldn't be, because I work a lot in local government. Even things like bins, your dustbins. Did you know there is technology connected to some of your dustbins? So in some countries and nations of the world, you can tell whether a bin has been emptied or not. Technology is coming in everywhere. Do I enjoy my job? Yes, I do. I do enjoy my job. And the main reason I enjoy my job is nowadays technology moves so quickly, you can make a difference very, very, very fast. So in the pandemic, we had a situation where taxi drivers couldn't work. So I don't know if you've looked at the news, but Boris has had us all grounded for several months over here in Britain. We haven't been able to go out and play or anything. So one of the things our company was able to do was put in a grant system So taxi drivers could apply for help and for assistance just to be able to survive, really. How long do you think it took us to put the grant system in place? Have a guess.
3 months.
Lot lower, much lower.
Oh.
Few weeks.
Lower still, we use apps technology, the sort of stuff that goes on your smartphones.
A week.
Getting closer, 4 days. 4 days. So this is how quick some of this modern technology can be put in place. So if you can go on a smartphone, you can put it on you can get it working very quickly. Okay, so that's what I like to be able to do, get solutions in quickly for clients that make a difference very quickly. Right then, Ava, that was Ava. Right, so Anne, who is Anne? Hello, Anne. Right, so let's have a look at your questions then. Can you tell me a day in the life at your work and what do I do from 8 to 5? So my first meeting of the day, regular meeting, we have a stand-up, virtual stand-up on Microsoft Teams at 8:30. And we do a quick, we go around all the different projects that I'm overseeing. What's everybody doing? What are the big risks? What's the problems? And then most of my day at the moment is spent doing this. So I'm in meetings with my team where we're all sitting here on these different calls and we're going through different challenges, problems, how we're going to fix different issues for our clients, how we're going to move things forward. And also I would spend some of my time during the day signing off designs. So a bit like that grant system, is that going to work? Is that going to solve the problems? How are we going to tell the client to implement it, for example? So for instance, we might have the solution, but we need to test that every type of phone can speak to that solution. So if you've got an Apple phone, or if you've got an Android, Samsung, because that's completely different. So we have to test both routes. So we do a lot of that sort of thing as well. And my day would probably be from about 8 to 6 at the moment, most of my days. If I've got a lot of work to do, it might go a bit further than that. And then we've got something every day called the purple hour. And that's where we all have an hour off for lunch and we go for a walk just to get out into, you know, the fresh air because we're all sort of in lockdown at the moment. So yeah, most of my time would be doing what I'm doing with you now. But we use Microsoft Teams. So that would be a typical day for me. And I haven't been at Agilysys very long actually. So I've been at Agilysys since July last year, which is quite unusual. But again, what has been happening in the technology space, particularly if you're looking at what we call digital. So digital would be technology that can sit on, like you say, your smartphones, or if you've heard about it, it sits on sort of data centers in, they call it the cloud, but it's really just hosted and lots of people share it. That sort of technology has been growing exponentially, let's use a big word, during the pandemic. And so my company has probably had the best year it's ever had, believe it or not. Because this really is sort of, it's technology is coming to the fore now in the pandemic. So those are all I think they're all the questions. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Follow-up questions?
no.
So we have one discussion, and I guess let's let you decide what that's going to be like. You can ask them questions.
Mm-hmm.
Or are there actual products you could show them?
Yeah, there is a question I'd like to set them actually. Maybe you can go away and have a think about it. I've made a statement during this session that technology has grown massively, and it's really, the value of it has really become very public because of the global pandemic we're in. Okay, so little question for you to go away about. I'm going to ask you two questions. One is, where do you think technology has been valuable and used during this pandemic? Okay, that'd be question number 1. And question number 2 is, what do you think might change in respect to the use of technology when we come out of this? So shall I repeat those again, just so you've got them? And then if you come up with great ideas, Ray, I'll pay a small amount of commission, shall I? So we can use it in our firm. But so the first one is, where have we seen technology being used and really adding value during this pandemic? And the second one is, as we all come out of this, what do you think some of we might see happen as a result? How might technology be used going forwards? Now, nobody's smiling at me. How do you feel about those two? Do you think you'll survive?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you can think in any industry, any walk of life you want to. Just be as creative as you can be. And one of my theories is this. If the sci-fi movies can think it up, technology will probably make it happen. Okay? Because whoever thought, well, Ray, you'll know this, whoever thought probably about 40 or 50 years ago we'd be doing video calls to each other like this. Okay, but it was on the sci-fi movies for years. All right. So fantastic questions, everybody. Really enjoyed getting those. So well done.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for your time, and we will hook up again in probably the 3rd week of April.
Yep, fantastic. And I'll see how you get on with your 2 questions.
Do you want them ahead of time, or do you want them to talk about them?
No, I think bring them with you to the next session, and let's have some fun with it and see what you've come up with. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. See
Thanks.
you all.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.